Hi, John Morgan here, and welcome to this week's episode of Bulbs Live, our weekly show right here on the internet. So let's get things started off today by taking a look at a couple of announcements. Well, really just one big announcement, and that is our Yard of the Month winner for July. So, this month got quite a few entries in, and as I've said before, all of the entries get carried over from month to month. So if you don't win this month, you could still win in a month ahead. So this month's winner for July is, and well, I don't have a drum roll, but this month's winner is Susie Vanko from Gallipolis, Ohio. So she is our July winner. And I'm going to be sending out a box with a bunch of goodies in it to her. And also, we're going to be writing up a blog post about her and her amazing garden. I have just tons of pictures of her garden. It is mind-blowing. And of course, if you want to be entered to win next month's Yard of the Month contest, submissions are due by Friday, August 31st for the month of August. So go ahead and send those to me. You can send them to the email address ask@bulbsmarket.com. So you need to send me in if you want to submit a picture. Send in the picture along with your name and your address. So that way if you win, I can get in touch with you and send your prize. Okay, let's take a look now at the weather forecast. And I'm going to kind of change up the format on the weather forecast. I was reviewing the last video that we filmed, and it's starting to eat up more and more time, the forecast. So I'm going to pare things down so we can get through it a little bit quicker so these videos aren't as long. So this weekend, let's take a look at some maps. We are looking at some pretty toasty weather in our area. Of course, down in the Midwest, Texas, reaching up through the Mississippi Valley, they're in the middle of a heat wave right now. And we're kind of on the edge of it, so it's going to be pretty toasty here Saturday and Sunday. And that's going to lead to some unsettled weather. There's a chance of scattered thunderstorms tomorrow, and moving on into Sunday, that's when our chance of a storm, especially a severe storm, is going to increase. And just looking at the weather forecast for our area, tomorrow and Sunday, they're forecasting a little over an inch of rain for us. So there's definitely going to be storms moving through the area. And it's pretty hot. If we take a look at the heat index right now, we're up in the 90s. It's not a heat wave as far as comparing it to back in June when we had the big storm that took out power. But still, it's pretty toasty. And that weather, it's going to continue more or less through next week. We're going to be up around 90 all week. And now let's take a look at the allergy forecast. As far as allergies are concerned, right now we are around a 5.0 on the scale, so it hasn't moved very much from last week, but the mix of things that might cause you to be affected by allergies has kind of changed since then. So let's take a look at some maps. And first off, we have grass pollen. It's kind of back on the rise again. So, this spring, after all the hay got cut, in our area especially, the grass pollen levels dropped back down. Now they're starting to kind of rise back up for fall. And actually, I seen my Amish neighbors out cutting hay just yesterday. And the other big thing right now that's really starting to affect us in our area is weed pollen, specifically ragweed. It's on the rise too. And the big one this week that we need to watch out for is mold. We've had some really wet weather here recently, especially compared to earlier in the summer when we were really dry. And that's leading to a large mold bloom. So you can see out there in the Midwest that's where the biggest concentration is. But you can also see in Ohio, heading over into West Virginia, that those levels are starting to get up there. So our main pollen concerns right now are grass to some extent. Weed is getting up there, especially the ragweed, but most definitely mold right now. And well, if you caught one of the tweets about the show before it started, or our post on Facebook, you seen that we were going to have naked ladies on the show. Woo! Yeah, so I've actually got a naked lady here with me in my office. Wait for it. There is our naked lady. It's Amaryllis, specifically Amaryllis belladonna. And these plants, you've probably seen them around, they're blooming right now in our area. And they're kind of an interesting plant. They're native to South Africa. But they're well acclimated to growing in many conditions, especially in our area. This actually came out of my front yard, and those amaryllis have been there, oh my, I can't even remember back how far. I live in my grandparents' house, and I know Grandma planted them probably 40 plus years ago, and they're still coming up every year. But they have kind of an interesting growth habit, because as you can see here on the screen, that's actually them. Let me line up my thumb here, right there, that little green patch down at the bottom in the yard. In the springtime, the leaves come up, but they don't bloom in the spring. So you get the leaf growth in the spring, and then that dies back kind of toward the end of May and early June, and it kind of dries out, and I usually just take some clippers and clip them off. And then in late August, not late August, what is it right now? Late July and early August, you'll get these stalks that come up, and on the top you get the beautiful blooms. So it's kind of interesting because you get the leaf growth in the spring, then it dies back, and then you get the spikes in August with the flowers. And that's where they get the name Naked Lady, because all that you see in August is just this stalk and these flowers. So sometimes you'll see them like where maybe somebody had them planted in a yard or in a flower bed. Then they took up the bed and it's grassed over. So sometimes you'll see these just sticking up out of grass and blooming. They're a very hardy plant. But they're kind of unique, and they do present some challenges, because if you have them in a flower bed, it's kind of tough to find a plant that you can plant over them during the time after the leaves die back and when they bloom in August. You know, from June to August, there's really a period there where you might have a blank spot in your flower bed. One year I decided to plant petunias over top of them. I thought, oh, that'll be great. Then the stalks can come up through in August. And well, August came around. I didn't have any naked ladies. They didn't come up at all that year. They didn't like me that summer. It almost smothered them and killed them. And the next year, you know, I was good to them the rest of the year. I didn't plant anything else over that area. Fertilized them well, and the next year they came up just beautifully. But what I've found works well around them is if you do want to overplant the area with something so you have color there, use something that you can space apart, that'll still look nice, and it doesn't spread out. So things like celosia, you know, coxcomb, they kind of stay nice and compact. They make a great choice to plant in around these in June. And other than that, they're pretty easy to care for. You just want to make sure you mulch over them really well in the winter to kind of help insulate them through the cold. And as I said just a second ago, take care when you're planting over them that you don't smother them out. And as far as fertilizing them, you can use something like a nice fertilizer that's formulated for bulbs. And well, if you want to read more about these amazing plants, I mean, it's really cool, their life cycle, you can find that information in our newsletter. And of course, to get our newsletter, you can text BOBS, B-O-B-S, to the number 22828, and that will register you for our e-newsletter. And to finish up our show today, I went out and filmed a little update. So it's only about a minute-long video, but it's some of what we're doing right now out in the greenhouse. Which the big thing that we're doing right now is growing pansies for fall. We have, oh my, millions of pansies out in the greenhouse right now. So let's take a look at this. Alright, and that's our show for this week. Join me next week here online at 4 p.m. for our next episode of Bob's Live. Bye.